The orbital arena of Zenthis Prime glittered like a crown jewel suspended in the void, its crystalline spires refracting the light of 3 suns into a spectacle of arrogance made manifest. The Galactic Dominion had built it for moments like this, to showcase their supremacy, to remind the lesser species of their place, and, above all, to savor the humiliation of the unworthy in high definition. High Marshal Vexthor of the Dominion strode onto the central observation deck, his chitinous armor polished to a mirror sheen, each step calibrated to echo with the weight of inevitability. His 4 primary eyes swept over the assembled dignitaries, Cathorian tacticians with their iridescent carapaces, Vithuri admirals draped in bioluminescent silks, Nixandra analysts with their multiple heads whispering in synchronized judgment, and then there were the humans. Ambassador Elias Carter stood at the edge of the delegation, a lean figure in an unadorned gray suit, his hands clasped behind his back as if he were waiting for a train rather than the commencement of a galactic farce. His expression was calm. Too calm. "Welcome," Vexthor intoned, his voice amplified to resonate through the arena's acoustics to the 247th Grand Wargames. A holographic display flared to life above them, showcasing past victories, Dominion fleets annihilating rebel holdouts, Dominion warriors standing triumphant over the wreckage of lesser civilizations. The audience, billions strong across the galaxy, watched via live feed, their collective anticipation a tangible force. "The Dominion," Vexthor continued, "has always believed in the virtues of demonstrated strength. It is not enough to claim superiority, one must prove it." His secondary eyes flicked toward the human delegation. "And so, we extend the honor of participation to our newest interstellar neighbors, humanity." The word dripped with condescension. A murmur rippled through the alien dignitaries. The humans were barely spacefaring, their technology laughably primitive, their military tactics cobbled together from centuries of infighting. They were here to lose, spectacularly. Ambassador Carter stepped forward. "We're grateful for the invitation," he said, his voice mild, "though I must admit we're curious about the rules of engagement." Vexthor's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. "The rules are simple. Simulated battles, judged by impartial tacticians. No live casualties, of course. We are not barbarians." The unspoken, unlike some, hung in the air. "Your forces will face scenarios designed to test adaptability, strategy, and resilience. Designed to break you," Carter translated silently. A holographic schematic unfolded between them, a star system, 2 fleets, a textbook Dominion engagement. "The first simulation will be a straightforward fleet engagement," Vexthor said, "to acclimate you to the standards of warfare." Carter studied the display. "And the audience?" Vexthor's antennae lifted in amusement. "The audience is a tradition. Billions will watch. It is how we ensure transparency, and how you ensure everyone sees us fail," Carter thought. Aloud he said, "We'd like to request unrestricted civilian access to the live feeds." A beat of silence. Then laughter, soft and derisive, from the assembled aliens. Vexthor tilted his head. "You wish for your people to witness your defeat in real time?" Carter's lips quirked. "Call it a cultural preference. We believe in the wisdom of crowds." The High Marshal waved a clawed hand. "Granted, let them see." Behind Carter, Lieutenant Mira Chen, the human team's lead analyst, suppressed a smile. The arena's lights dimmed. The simulations would begin tomorrow. The Dominion's media networks were already airing carefully curated segments on human history, wars, disasters, the follies of a young species. The narrative was set, or so they thought. As the alien dignitaries dispersed, Carter turned to his team. "You know what to do," Chen nodded. "We're not here to win their game." "No," Carter agreed. "We're here to change the rules." Above them, the holographic displays flickered, replaying past Dominion glories. None of the aliens noticed the human observers, scientists, historians, ordinary citizens already dissecting every frame, every boast, every unguarded moment. The games hadn't even begun, and humanity had already made their first move. The crystalline halls of Zenthis Prime thrummed with the anticipatory buzz of 1,000 species gathered for bloodless war. High Marshal Vexthor's carapace gleamed under the arena's tri-sun lighting as he raised a clawed limb, silencing the crowd with the ease of someone who had never been ignored in his life. "Behold the traditions of honorable combat," he intoned, mandibles clicking with performative solemnity. Behind him, holograms flared to life, an endless scroll of Dominion victories, each battle replaying in sanitized glory. No scorched cities, no broken treaties. Just the elegant choreography of inevitable triumph. Ambassador Elias Carter watched from the human delegation's designated lesser species booth, a cramped alcove half the size of the other participants. His fingers steepled under his chin as Dominion medics approached with bioscanners. "Standard procedure," sniffed the lead examiner, a Cathoran with iridescent plating, "to ensure no biological irregularities grant unfair advantages." The subtext hung thicker than Zenthis's ammonia-rich atmosphere. "We don't trust you primitives not to cheat." Carter extended his arm without comment. The scanner's violet beam crawled over his skin, pausing at his temple. The Catharon's eye stalk stiffened. "Your neural activity is atypical." "Human brains fire differently during stress," Carter said mildly. "We call it creative problem solving." A murmur rippled through nearby delegates. Vexthor's tail twitched, the Dominion equivalent of an eyebrow raised. The pre-battle interviews were worse. Dominion media drones swarmed the human team, zooming in on their unfashionable jumpsuits and lack of ceremonial weaponry. "Your team consists of analysts," sneered a V-Theory broadcaster, her voice modulator dialed to maximum derision. The feed spliced footage of human wars, grainy, out-of-context clips of trench warfare and nuclear tests. Beneath a caption, "Evolutionary Dead End," Lieutenant Mira Chen, the youngest human delegate at 23, blinked at the drone. "We brought historians, game theorists, and a child psychologist. Dr. Suryans. Petrov over there?" She pointed to a rumpled man examining the arena's hologrid. "He wrote his thesis on how toddlers negotiate snack sharing. More relevant than you'd think." The V-Thurus tentacles coiled in confusion. The ceremonial fleet display was meant to be the final humiliation. 100 Dominion warships materialized above the arena, their gravity drives distorting the light like heat haze. The crowd roared as dreadnoughts pirouetted through tactical formations, their plasma cannons etching victory sigils across the stratosphere. The message was clear. This is power. You will never have this. Carter waited for the applause to fade before speaking. "A request, High Marshal." Vexthor's compound eyes reflected 100 tiny humans. "You may beg for leniency after your first defeat. Unrestricted civilian access to the game's live feeds." Carter gestured to the empty seats around them. "Let our people watch theirs. A cultural exchange." The request was so absurd the silence turned physical. Dominion Wargames were state secrets wrapped in pageantry, every simulation carefully edited, every outcome pre-approved by military censors. Vexthor's laugh sounded like rocks in a grinder. "You wish your children to witness your inadequacy? Democracy's messy." Carter shrugged. "We like transparency." The High Marshal flicked a claw at his aides. "Granted, let the galaxy see humanity's unique approach to warfare." Across the arena, Lieutenant Chen hit a smile behind her datapad. The first domino had fallen. Back in their quarters, the human team gathered around a flickering holo projector. Doctor, Petrov adjusted his glasses as data streams flooded the display. Millions of human viewers already accessing the raw feeds. "They're scanning for weapons," muttered a tactical analyst. "Not looking for us." Chen tapped her screen, pulling up a live chat where human gamers were dissecting the Dominion's fleet maneuvers. "That spins pure show. Exposes their ventral thrusters for 1.2 seconds, scrolled one comment. "We's the IA. We's their formation identical to the Battle of Crexus 12.us, oxed another. Petrov chuckled. "Ever seen a 5-year-old dismantle a unbeatable board game strategy? Give it 6 hours. Outside, the tri-sunset painting the arena in long shadows. Somewhere in the darkness, a billion human eyes watched and learned. The first simulation unfolded like a scripted tragedy, which of course it was. Dominion battlecruisers, sleek as obsidian daggers, carved through the void in perfect formation. Their weapons flared in synchronized bursts, annihilating the haphazard human fleet within minutes. The holographic battlefield shimmered with the detonations of human ships, each explosion a carefully choreographed spectacle for the galactic audience. High Marshal Vexthor lounged in his command throne, mandibles twitching in amusement. "Observe," he said to his adjutants, gesturing to the feed where human commanders stared blankly at their defeat. "Their confusion is delicious, like hatchlings witnessing their first supernova." But something was wrong. Not with the simulation that ran flawlessly, as it always did. Not with the Dominion's propaganda feeds, which dutifully cut to slow-motion replays of human errors. No, the wrongness slithered in through the margins. On the public commentary channels, where Dominion citizens were meant to revel in human humiliation, the tone had shifted. Why do their cruisers always decloak at the same coordinates? Scrolled one alien viewer. That's the third time they've used the Battle of Crexus 12 maneuvers. Even my fledgling could predict that. Ambassador Elias Carter, watching from the human delegation's observation deck, allowed himself a sip of tepid coffee. "Ah," he murmured, "the first domino falls. The Dominion's mistake had been granting humanity's request, unrestricted civilian access to the feeds. They'd expected humans to cower, to rage impotently at their losses. Instead, humanity watched. Not just their own analysts, but engineers on Mars, school children in Jakarta, retired admirals in Lisbon, a billion eyes dissecting every frame. And then they talked. A teenage gamer in Nairobi live-streamed herself glitching the simulation's public viewer, freezing the feed to highlight a cruiser's impossible turn radius. "See that?" she crowed. "Their physics engines faked. I've seen better coding in freeware." A historian in Kyoto overlaid the battle with archival footage of the Dominion's peacekeeping campaign on Zeta 9. The maneuvers matched. Exactly. And then there were the children. A 7-year-old from Quito, watching with her class, asked aloud, "If they're so strong, why do they need to cheat?" The question trended across 12 systems within the hour. The High Marshal's command center was a storm of klaxons and panic. "I see them!" Vexthor snarled, crushing a data tablet in his grip. On the main display, a human commentator, some insignificant academic with messy hair, was calmly dismantling the simulation's AI parameters. "How are they doing this? They're primitives. Their best warship is a converted mining barge." His media advisor, a spindly Catharan, trembled. "They're not attacking the outcomes, sir. They're attacking the story. The more we push the flawless victory narrative, the more their analysts find inconsistencies. It's insurgency," Vexthor realized, his carapace darkening. "They're weaponizing spectatorship." He whirled to his comms officer. "Shut down the human feeds, now!" The damage was done. Dominion audiences, raised on tales of their military's invincibility, were now murmuring, questioning. A Tarkelian merchant guild, watching from the fringe systems, publicly demanded to know why the invincible Dominion needed pre-scripted battles. A Vithuri poet wrote a scathing satire comparing the games to a child's puppet show, and through it all, the human delegation remained infuriatingly calm. Petrov, humanity's lead analyst, leaned back in his chair as another simulation ended in Dominion victory. His team hadn't even touched their controls. "Check the feed stats," he said to his assistant. She grinned. "Human commentary streams? Up 400. And sir," she pulled up a new window. "The Cathoran Homeworld's underground networks just started rebroadcasting our analysis with subtitles." Petrov chuckled. "Tell the ambassador we're ready for phase 2. Outside, the Tri-Suns dipped below the arena's edge, casting long shadows. Somewhere in the darkness, a billion human eyes watched, and the galaxy watched back. The Dominion's grand arena thrummed with the electric unease of a stage play gone wrong." High Marshal Vexthor's mandibles twitched as he watched another simulation unfold, human ships losing spectacularly to his fleets in the crystalline void of the holographic battlefield. But the victory tasted like ash. The audience, once a roaring sea of Dominion loyalists, now rippled with murmurs. "Did you see that? The human commentator just called the flanking maneuver predictable as a tax audit." Vexthor's claws flexed. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The games were meant to be a display of dominance, a choreographed humiliation, not this. Nairobi An, a lanky cultural analyst with a penchant for viral memes, leaned back in her chair, grinning at the feeds. "They're panicking," she said, tossing a handful of popcorn into her mouth. "Look at this, Dominion morale officers scrambling to delete comments under their own propaganda vids. Too late, we've already archived everything." Beside her, Ambassador Elias Carter steepled his fingers, watching a teenage gamer's livestream on a secondary screen. The kid, call sign Stardust Reaper, had hacked into a simulations backend and was live demonstrating how the Dominion's unbeatable fleet had pre-scripted evasion paths. "See this?" Stardust Reaper's voice crackled through the feed, fingers flying over a holographic keyboard. "Their ships dodge exactly 0.3 seconds before our weapons fire, even if we change the firing pattern. It's not AI, it's a cutscene." The chat exploded. Alien viewers, initially there to mock, were now flooding the stream with demands for proof. Carter smiled. Phase 2. "Let's give them more." Vexthor's comms officer stiffened. "Hi Marshal, we have a problem." A hologram flared to life, a deep fake of Vexthor himself leaning into a microphone with a smirking conspiratorial tilt. "Of course the games are rigged," the fake Vexthor purred. "Did you think we'd let these hairless apes win? The whole point is to remind the galaxy who's in charge." The recording looped. "It was crude, obvious, but it was crude, obvious, but it was everywhere." Vexthor's carapace darkened with fury. "Trace the source." "Huh! I want those human vermin, sir," the officer interrupted, voice strained. "It's too late. The Cathoran underground networks are amplifying it. The V3 labor guilds are demanding an investigation. Even our own troops are asking if—" "Silence!" Vexthor's roar echoed through the chamber. He whirled to his intelligence chief. "How are they doing this? They're primates with transmitters." The chief hesitated. "They're not fighting the simulations, High Marshal." Shipdice hesitated. "They're not fighting the simulations. They're fighting the story." Nairobi flicked a final command into her console, and boom, a historian's thread comparing Dominion Wargames to their invasion of Cathoran Prime. Same tactics, same scripted outcomes. A mashup of Dominion commanders fumbling interviews set to a jaunty human dance track. A child's drawing of a Dominion warship with the caption, "If you're so strong, why do you cheat?" The Dominion's pristine narrative was unraveling in real time. Ambassador Carter straightened his cuffs as a priority alert chimed. A message from the V3 delegation. We would like to discuss cultural exchange. He allowed himself a small, satisfied exhale. Right on schedule. Junior morale officer Krex slammed his terminal off, but the damage was done. Human-made memes had infiltrated even the Dominion's secured channels. His subordinate, a fresh-faced recruit, hesitated. Sir, the troops in Barracks 7 are laughing at the High Marshal's rigged adventure parody vid. Should we? Krex buried his face in his claws. Just shut down the networks. But the games are live. The whole galaxy is watching. Petrov, the human fleet's stoic tactical lead, watched the dominoes fall on her feeds. They're losing control of the narrative. Carter nodded. And once you lose the story, you lose the war. Outside the viewport, the Tri-Suns dipped lower, painting the arena in hues of blood and gold. Somewhere in the shadows, a billion human eyes watched, and the galaxy, now awake, watched back. The Dominion's broadcast control room was a masterpiece of alien engineering. Crystalline interfaces humming with suppressed energy. Holographic feeds flickering in perfect synchronization. High Marshal Vexthor's third set of eyes twitched as he watched the chaos unfold. Shut it down, he hissed, his voice like grinding tectonic plates. Every human feed, every unauthorized transmission. Beneath him, the Dominion's chief sensor, a spindly Catharon named Prime, tapped frantically at the controls. We cannot, Excellency. Their signals are bedbedbedgen. Cutting them would collapse half the galactic net. Prime's exoskeleton rattled with panic. They've woven themselves into our infrastructure. Vexthor's mandibles flexed. A human child's voice piped through the chamber's speakers, echoed like a grenade. Why do they need to cheat if they're so strong? The question had gone supernova. It scrolled across Dominion news tickers, flashed in neon above the arena's floating promenades, even seeped into the private comms of Vexthor's own officers. Outside, the orbital arena was a storm of light and sound. The Tri-Suns cast long shadows over the holographic battlefields, now frozen mid-simulation. Human observers, ordinary civilians, scientists, even children, stood at the observation decks, their faces illuminated by the glow of their own feeds. They weren't just watching, they were commenting. A teenage gamer from Nairobi, her fingers dancing across a jury-rigged interface, live-streamed her dissection of the Dominion's simulation algorithms. See this? She zoomed in on a flicker in the hologram. That's a forced loss condition. Their invincible dreadnought? To ignore flanking maneuvers. Literally coded to win. Her feed hit 1 billion views in minutes. Ambassador Elias Carter stood in the center of the storm, his hands clasped behind his back, watching as Dominion morale officers scrambled to contain the fallout. Petrov, the human tactical lead, smirked beside him. They're trying to delete the evidence. Carter's smile was a blade. Too late. A holographic screen flickered to life above them, broadcasting live from a fringe Dominion world. Protesters, alien protesters, flooded the streets, their signs flashing in 12 languages. Fake victories, real oppression. Vexthor's image appeared on a nearby feed, his voice booming across the arena. This is treason! Arrest the human delegation! Now! The Dominion guards hesitated. One, a hulking beside warrior, glanced at his squad. Is it true? He rumbled. Were the simulations fixed? A human child, no older than 8, looked up at him from the observation deck. You're really pretty, she said, pointing at his iridescent scales. Why do you have to pretend to win? The besides grip on his pulse rifle faltered. In the control room, Vexthor's fury reached critical mass. I will not be humiliated by vermin. He slammed a fist into the console, sending Prime scrambling backward. Override their feeds, jam their signals, burn their ships. Prime's voice was a whisper. Excellency, we're still broadcasting. A hollow screen flickered. The entire galaxy watched as Vexthor, live and unfiltered, ordered the annihilation of a peaceful delegation. Carter's voice cut through the silence. Thank you for the clarification, High Marshal. He held up a small device, a recorder. "We've been streaming this entire conversation." The galaxy held its breath. Then the Dominion's own soldiers, their soldiers, lowered their weapons. Dialogue as weaponry. Child's question versus Vexthor's rage. The Dominion's Grand Chamber, a vaulted hall of shimmering alloy and holographic banners, had been designed to inspire awe. Now, it felt like a cage. High Marshal Vexthor's mandibles twitched as the weight of Ambassador Carter's words settled over the assembled dignitaries. "Everything has been live-streamed." The silence that followed was thicker than neutron star matter. On the central display, a feed flickered. Millions of alien faces, Dominion citizens and fringe world dissidents alike, watching in real time as their commander's carefully constructed spectacle crumbled. A child's voice piped through the speakers from some distant human colony, looped like a knife twisting in the ribs of the Empire. "Why do they need to cheat if they're so strong?" Vexthor's claws flexed. "Cut the transmissions," he hissed to his aides. In the observation decks of the Nairobi, humanity's unarmed diplomatic vessel, a dozen analysts monitored the chaos. Lieutenant Amara Singh adjusted her headset, lips quirking as alien protest slogans scrolled across her screen. "They're rioting on Kathoran Prime," she reported. "Dominion morale officers are getting pelted with their own propaganda holos." Beside her, Ambassador Carter leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Good." The room hummed with quiet triumph. No guns fired, no fleets mobilized, just the inexorable tide of truth rushing through the cracks in the Dominion's armor. Vexthor rounded on Carter, his carapace darkening with fury. "You insect! You think this petty trickery changes anything? The Dominion has ruled for 10,000 cycles." Carter didn't flinch. "And in all that time," he said, voice soft as a scalpel, "did you ever stop to ask why you needed the Wargames at all?" The question hung in the air. Around them, the minor species delegates, Kathoran emissaries with their crystalline limbs, beside traitors with their iridescent frills, exchanged glances. For centuries, they'd been told their defeats were inevitable, their rebellions foolish. Now, they saw the truth. The Dominion's supremacy was a stage play, and humanity had just pulled back the curtain. A murmur spread through the chamber. On 1,000 worlds, the feed split screen. Vexthor's sputtering rage on one side, a montage of Dominion victories, unraveling on the other. A teenage gamer's glitch, exposed simulation, proving the outcomes were pre-scripted, historians overlaying Dominion battle tactics with historical massacres, a human grandmother smiling as she knitted and narrated the fall of an empire. The galaxy watched. And the galaxy understood. In a dim-lit bunker beneath the chamber, Dominion sensors scrambled to contain the damage. "Override the civilian networks," one screeched. A junior officer, her antennae drooping, hesitated. "Sir, the troops, they're sharing the feeds themselves." The sensor froze. The unthinkable had happened. The Dominion's own soldiers, raised on tales of honor, fed on the myth of their invincibility, were questioning the script. Carter stepped forward, hands open. "Marshal, you invited us here to prove your superiority. But war isn't just about who can fire the biggest gun. It's about who can think." He gestured to the screens. "And right now, the entire galaxy is thinking very hard about you." Vexthor's throat pulsed. For the first time in his long, decorated career, he had no retort. The silence stretched. A chime. A message flashing on every display in the chamber. The Dominion's political machinery, ever pragmatic, had already chosen its scapegoat. 3 cycles later, the Wargames were disbanded. The High Marshal resigned. Humanity's observers, historians, gamers, grandmothers were quietly banned from Dominion space. They celebrated with memes. And Ambassador Carter? He stood on the Nairobi's observation deck, watching Zenthis Prime shrink in the distance. Behind him, Lieutenant Singh grinned. Think they'll invite us back next time? Carter chuckled. Oh, I hope not. The ship jumped to warp. Somewhere in the cosmos, an empire began the long, painful work of rebuilding its pride. The galaxy kept watching. Dialogue as weaponry, Carter's quiet precision versus Vextor's unraveling, blend of arrogance crumbling, Dominion's theatrical rage versus systemic collapse, quiet human victory, grandmother knitting.